Welcome, everybody, to the Let's Shine a Light in the Dark podcast, brought to you by Let's Organization Zambia. We started out as a domestic violence service and branched out to raise awareness on everything to do with health, talking about physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. We're covering topics with survivors, suicidal ideation, substance abuse, and many other topics that impact our communities and ourselves and our societies. So please just be mindful what you're listening to today. And you can access our website for free resources. You can also reach out to us, make contact if you need support. Please be mindful that we're not a crisis service. Thank you. Hello and welcome to the Let's podcast. Today we're joined by Clinton and Memory, and we're just having a conversation about how academic performance affects our mental health. They're both coming from a place of understanding and lived experience, but from different perspectives. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourselves, please? Letting us know why you two are the right people for us to be having this conversation with.
Okay. For me, thank you for having me on this podcast. My name is Kinemena, a development studies graduate and a research consultant who has been working closely with students since 2020. And over the past few years, my work has involved supporting students in academic research, mentoring them through their academic journey, and helping them navigate the pressure that usually comes with university life. During my own academic journey, I had the honor of graduating as a best graduating student in the School of Business and Humanities. And that experience gave me a deeper understanding of both the opportunities and the pressure that usually comes with striving for academic success. Because of my work with students and my personal academic experience, I've been able to observe how academic expectation can affect mental health. I've interacted with a number of students, those that struggle with stress, anxiety, and burnout due to academic pressure. Yeah. So the combination of both my personal experience and professional experience with students allows me to speak about mental health and academic performance from a very practical and realistic perspective. Hope that's enough.
That's great. Thank you so much, Clinton. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's great to know that you've also, you've got personal experience as well on top of your professional experience. So that's really positive for us today. Would you like to introduce yourself, Memory, and tell us a little bit about why you're the right person for this conversation?
For having me. My name is Memory Namukanga. I'm a GA student doing public health nursing at the University Teaching of Zambia, which is UTH. And I'm a mental health advocate. We're so much passionate about speaking mental health illnesses. And one thing that who should be on this podcast is that number one, I'm that kind of a who used to be good, just went to courage. I never had confidence in myself, and that had to affect my mental health to an extent whereby I could not pay attention to my studies, whereby I even reached a point whereby I wanted to stop. That when I just had to realize to say, okay, knowing myself and what I'm capable of doing, it is what contributed me to start speaking, advocating for other people who are voiceless concerning how mental health is affecting families, through the words that they use, through our friend who tried to segregate themselves. And I feel like that's what makes me to be who should be allowed to speak on this podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Memory. Thank you for sharing that. So again, lovely, lived experience is so important when it comes to mental health because we can truly understand the people that we're trying to support when we've been through certain things. So thank you for sharing that. So we're just going to jump straight into it. As you've heard from the intro, we'll be talking about mental health and academic performance today. So, Clinton, what do you believe is important to mention when we think about mental health and academic performance?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Yeah, mental health and academic performance are often discussed separately, but in reality, they are deeply connected. A student may have the negligence, the resources. A student may have rather the intelligence, the resources, and the opportunity to succeed. But without mental well-being, it becomes very difficult for them to sustain the academic excellence. And then in many learning environments today, students are under immense pressure to perform, sometimes at the cost of their well-being. Okay, so as someone who has worked with students for several years and experienced the academic journey personally, I believe it is important for us to start having honest conversation about how we can pursue academic success while protecting the mental health of students. So when we talk about mental health and academic performance, one important thing to understand is that academic success is not determined by own intelligence, but also how many hours a student studies. The mental well-being also plays a very significant role in how student performs academically. Hope you are getting me.
Yes. Yeah.
So when a student is mentally healthy, they're able to concentrate better, stay motivated, and process information effectively. Yeah, because I'm saying this out of my own experience. Because during my studies, I used to be stressed a lot. And then I understand how studies can affect mental health. However, when a student is struggling with stress, anxiety, or emotional stress, it becomes very difficult for them to focus, retain information, and perform well in exams or assignments. But again, mental health, I believe, it depends on how the person is also. Because for me, what I used to experience is that every time I'm stressed, I used to read a lot. I can even read for hours, abnormal studying. I would study for hours, perhaps 6 hours, even more than that. So it's somehow multidimensional to talk about. Another important factor, again, that we can't ignore is the pressure that students experience from different sources. Sometimes it comes from family expectations, sometimes from societal standards, and sometimes from students themselves who feel that they must constantly prove their way through their academic performance. It is therefore important to remember that students are human beings before they are students. They have emotions, personal challenges, and social pressure that affect their lives. So, an educational institution should also create environment that supports student well-being through mentorship, counseling services, and open discussions about mental health. Yeah, I think that's my take.
Amazing. No, there's a lot in there, Clinton. Thank you so much. So just a bit of a mini recap. What you've highlighted as important to think about when we're talking about mental health and academic performance is how a person's mental health really impacts their academic performance. And you described situations of how increased anxiety can reduce focus, reduce time spent studying, reducing the ability to retain information and really impact people in a negative way, such as having stress during even assignments and exams, etc. And then you've also highlighted some ways that this can be improved and changed, which is really helpful. So thank you very much for that.
My key emphasis was that I think you need to note this down. Mental health direct affects concentration, motivation, and academic performance. And it is also important. And the other key emphasis was on the family, society, and personal experiences can have mental well-being. Also institutions like that,
yes, so absolutely. Okay, so I won't repeat what Clinton has said, but those were the key highlights or the key takeaways for us to really navigate through when we're talking about mental health and academic performance. So Memory, Clinton's mentioned quite a lot of things there that are important for us to recognize. Do you have anything else to add to that, or we can move on to the next question, which I'll give you first.
All right, you can give me the next question.
Okay, thank you. So, one thing that you mentioned, Clinton, was you just mentioned briefly self-worth, and that actually ties in really nicely with the next question. So Memory, how much does self-worth tie to academic performance?
Thank you so much. So when we try to look at self-worth, it being tied to academic performance. Number one, as a person, when you don't know your worth, you yourself, it is very much hard for you to pay attention academically. If you don't know, because when you try to look at self-worth, this is how you're looking at yourself to say, who am I? What are the things that I want to achieve? How do I see myself in the next 5 years? But the moment that as an individual, you don't know that worth to say, I'm created wonderfully before God, I've got an assignment that I need to fulfill, you won't be able to pay attention. You won't even be a person who would try to have that desire to study. But once you know your self-worth as an individual, then you try your level best because you come to understand to say, I have a certain mission that I need to achieve. So concerning someone knowing their self-worth, what I can say is that it will help them to build self-confidence. Why? Because they know their self-worth. It will help them to have self-esteem even when they are standing to speak anything because they know their self-worth. Knowing your self-worth and anything, it will help that person to do level based. So the moment that you are an individual, you are a student, you are anything, if you don't know your self-worth, people will look down on you, then you'll be demoralized. People will look down on you, then you'll be unable to do what you are made to do. So knowing your self-worth in academic is very much important because once you know your self-worth, you won't let negativity to be part of you, but you shall be a person who will have positivity in any kind of your life. I'll just give an example. If you don't know your self-worth as an individual, they'll deploy you whilst you are capable of doing great things, then they'll be giving you a salary that is not supposed to be given to you. Why? Because you don't know your self-worth. Just like the Bible says, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. Lack of knowing your self-worth is like you don't know whom you are. It is like you don't know your identity. It is like you don't know your capability. So I will emphasize to say it is very much important in academic to know your self-worth, to say you are intelligent, you can become great, you are made for something that is very much great. That's what I can say concerning self-worth in academia.
Thank you so much, Memory. That's really helpful. So you just highlighted different ways that a person can achieve goals, achieve opportunities, change opportunities by recognizing their self-worth and how that feeds into building self-confidence and positive self-esteem. So those are some really great points. Thank you so much. Clinton, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Yes. And then for me, I feel for many students, self-worth is deeply tied to academic performance, and sometimes this connection becomes unhealthy. Yeah, from a young age, you find that many students are praised mainly when they perform well academically. Over time, this can create the belief that their value as individuals is determined by their grades, test results, or academic achievement. You can even find this in our homes. You find that perhaps that kid that usually gets 90%, 60%, they are treated separately compared to those with low IQ. However, academic performance is its own one dimension of who a person is. And then a student can be intelligent, creative, compassionate, and capable in many other ways that are measured by that are not measured by exam scores. So I believe it is therefore important for students to develop a balanced sense of self-worth. Academic success is important, yes, but it should not be the only measure of the person's value. Okay, so when a student understands that failure is part of learning and growth, they become more resilient and less likely to experience emotional distress when things do not go as planned. Mainly, what I was trying to say that mainly students equate grades with personal value. And then also, failure should not define a personal worthy or negligence. Self-worth should be broader than academic performance alone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clinton. Yes, I agree. And there's some really great points that you made as well about making sure that you're balancing your self-worthiness and it's not tied into performance. So I agree, tying your value into any type of performance, whether it's in the workplace, in relationships, in your academia, even in friendships, it can cause burnout, it can cause anxiety, and then it can also have this like constant need to prove yourself. Instead, cultivating self-worth by focusing on intrinsic values as a human being, being able to set boundaries and practicing self-compassion, really growing your self-worth from an internal space are really, I think those are important things for us to note, which you guys have both highlighted today. So, Clinton, do you feel that the current education system rewards resilience over overworking? And do you feel that there's a difference?
Yeah, there is definitely a difference between resilience and overworking. But unfortunately, the education system sometimes confuses the two. So, like, to my understanding, resilience is the ability to face challenges, adapt to difficulties, and continue progressing while maintaining mental and emotional balance. It also involves persistence, discipline, and the ability to learn from setbacks. And then overworking, however, is when students push themselves beyond health limits. So this often involves sacrificing sleep, social life, and mental well-being just to meet academic expectations. And funny enough, in many cases, the education system tends to reward overworking because students constantly push themselves. Students who constantly push themselves may achieve impressive results. And also however, this approach also is not sustainable enough because it often leads to stress, burnout, and long-term mental exhaustion. So true resilience should involve working hard while it's also maintaining health boundaries, understanding when to rest and managing stress effectively. Okay? Yeah, so that was the main point. So academic success should require students to sacrifice their mental health in other words. In other words, what I was trying to say was, hope I've answered the question.
Yes. Yes, you have. So you're basically, sorry.
Yes.
You're basically saying that resilience builds capacity while overworking destroys it.
Yes.
Sometimes we don't see those things, but resilience is the healthy version, focuses on long-term capacity, setting boundaries, maintaining control, strategy, taking breaks, setting times for yourself when you're going to study. We talk about academically, setting times for yourself when you're going to study, and being able to say no, being able to be resistive when it comes to, opportunities with friends. For example, the expectations from friends when you're all studying together, what does that mean for you, and how can that affect your resilience in terms of your focus and your drive? And overworking is very unhealthy and involves constant high stress, long hours, often driven by a poor study life balance and high anxiety and things. So yes, you've made some great points there. So Memory, is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
Has been said, like, we misinterpret or we misunderstand resilient is many at the time, comparing it to hardworking or overworking. A lot of people feel like when someone is overworking, then that is what is good, but we always forget the part of our own health, which we end up finding ourselves into different conditions, different kind of illnesses, because why? We have failed to follow our path to differentiate the two. Otherwise, everything has already been said.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Memory, for adding those in. So we've just been talking about the dangers of overworking and what this can cause. So it moves us nicely into thinking about burnout. So we often hear about burnout. How do you distinguish between being tired from studying and being mentally exhausted?
Being tired from studying is very normal. I want to give an overview before I go into details. Yeah, being tired from studying is very normal after long hours of reading, writing assignments, or preparing for exams. And usually students naturally feel mentally or physically fatigued. They feel mentally or physically fatigued. Under this type of tiredness, usually this type of tiredness goes away after resting, sleeping, or taking a break. So to me, burnout or mental exhaustion, however, is much deeper compared to being tired. It occurs when a student experiences prolonged stress without proper recovery over time. Instead of just feeling tired, the student may feel emotionally drained, demotivated, and disconnected from their studies. They may even lose interest in their work, struggle to concentrate, or feel that their efforts are no longer meaningful. And then a simple way to distinguish these two is, if rest restores your energy, it is probably normal tiredness. But if it goes above that, or you feel overwhelmed, drained, or hopeless about your academic work, then that can be recognized as burnout. So I feel recognizing burnout early, it's very important so that students can seek support and also adjust their workload and prioritize their mental well-being. In other words, normal tiredness disappears after rest, but for burnout, they persist even after resting. And then, last but not the least, burnout usually involves emotion exhaustion, and loss of motivation. I think that's my understanding.
Okay, no, that's great. That's really helpful. Yes, and a very good description for both. Memory, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I could like to add to that. There is a difference between burnout and someone who is just like being tired, burnout, and mental health exhaustion. When we talk about someone experiencing burnout, it is just that person having maybe pressure, maybe that person is stressed because of doing something or taking a responsibility that is not giving them the space for them to experience at least reliefment toward anything. Then when we try to burnout has got its own symptoms that you person whereby one is just feeling tired all the time because are having huge responsibility compared to the time that they are, whereby they will lose motivation, they'll even lose interest in studying. Some will feel hopelessness, difficult concentration. Then when we try to look at mental exhaustion, this is something to do with the brain, whereby someone is tired and they just are thinking a lot of things, whereby there is emotional involvement comes with the same mental exhaustion, something that is dealing with the brain. And we know to say once something has affected the brain, the person definitely will be affected health wise. It's because we know what mental health is. It's not just the absence of someone maybe being mentally stable, but it should something that we should involve even the physical.
Thank you very much, Memory. That was really helpful. So just before we finish, I was wondering if you guys could both just share some tips and tricks for the listeners. We've talked about the importance of having mental health, positive mental health and resilience, good self-worth when we're thinking about academic performance. So how is it that people can do these things? How is it that people can maintain a good well-being to keep their academic performance at a positive level, and also thinking about how we maintain the balance between the two? So just share some tips and tricks that the listeners can try out themselves, please.
Okay, so like your question is some of the things or tips that they need to follow in order for them to maintain between the educational stress and anything that can cause them to have mental health, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. So one, we all know to say we are living in a world. There are a lot of things that would try to bring anxiety. It might be because maybe you are having an exam, then you are being stressed. It might be maybe because of home. Then people are expecting you to produce quality results toward them without understanding to say we some overwhelmed as and because of how bulk things are. One of the things that we need to know is that if you're a student, then you know to say, no, maybe I'm being given a lot of things to study. It's good to start area to study so that you won't have that pressure when it will be time for you to study. And other things, when it is because maybe you're being stressed because of other things, we need to develop the habits of meditation. Meditate about something because trust me, mental health issues are everywhere because sometimes you find to say the economy, you are a student and they're not giving you enough money. How are you going to concentrate towards your studies? It is very much hard, but be a student who will be very much content and be a student like who won't be overwhelmed, but be a person with patience who meditates to say, okay, what if I do this? Is it right or is it wrong? And be a person like journaling is very much important because each and every person experiences mental health problems that challenge our health. But if you can journal those things that are troubling you, write them, ask yourself, okay, what can I do in order for me to be able to be well concerning these kind of problems that I'm facing? And most important, let's learn to share because sometimes we'll find relief when we share our problems rather than just us keeping it unto ourselves. If you're a student, you're finding it hard for you to study, go to that person who has gone ahead of you, maybe with a semester, with a year. Ask them, how should I do it? They'll give you tips that will help you and make sure prioritize your health because we all know to say mental health is real. Mental health is affecting a lot of people. But if you alone yourself, you don't put in those habits, then you'll be affected. Make sure you fall in love with yourself before other people fall in love with you. Make sure be a person who be optimistic even in hard time. I know school is stressing, but all in all, we need to believe in ourselves. Be resilient. Be a person who have those habits to say when things are hard, they won't break you, but they will build you and learn from the mistakes that we can make. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Memory. Lots of great tips in there. Clinton, would you like to share some?
Yes, yeah, let me just add on to what Memory said. So for me, I feel one of the things that usually a student struggles with in university, it's balance. So I would advise them to prioritize balance, not perfection. One important thing that students should understand is that academic success does not require perfection. So trying to be perfect in everything can create unnecessary pressure and anxiety. Instead, students should focus on doing their best while also maintaining balance in their lives. Remember, progress is more important than perfection. So the second point is mostly they should learn how to manage time effectively. Poor time management is one of the biggest sources of stress among a student. When assignments, exams, and responsibilities pile up, it becomes overwhelming, so hard for most students to endure. So creating a realistic study schedule and breaking tasks into smaller manageable steps can reduce pressure and make academic work feel more achievable. Okay? Hope you're able to get my memory. So another recommendation or tip that I can give is take breaks and allow your mind to recover, especially when you're tired. Continuous studying without break can actually reduce productivity and increase mental exhaustion or exhaustion, that is exhausting, something like that. So the brain needs time to process information and recover. So students should therefore develop a habit of taking short breaks, sleeping well, and engaging in activities that refresh their minds. So, last but not the least, they should also avoid comparing themselves to others. You find that in many academic environments, students often compare their performance with their peers. So this comparison creates a feeling of inadequacy and anxiety. You know, every student has a different training pace. So background and strength, instead of focusing on competition, students should focus on their personal growth and improvement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Clinton. Some great additions in there. And you've both added some great tips and tricks. The only thing that I will add, and I think the only couple that I wanted to add was just about brain function. So recognizing that our brains have the capacity to continuously create serotonin and dopamine, which are neurotransmitters which just make us feel better, make us feel good, make us feel happy. That's the kind of, aside from many other functions that they do in our body, those are some of the things that they do for regards to our mental health. And there's lots of things that you can do to increase those. Eating certain foods, meditation, memory mentioned, journaling, memory you also mentioned. But gratitude is one of the best ways to improve a person's mood. Takes a bit of a habit growth in there, which I think you guys both also mentioned positive habit building. So yeah, keeping those in mind, and then just really exploring the different ways from all these different tips that have been mentioned. Try out different things, because you need to find what works best for you. You need to find what works best for you in your school or university, college, wherever it is, but also how that affects you in your home life and your relationships. So finding things that really work for you. Try different things out. And also remember, reaching out and spending time with people that care about you is also really good and positive for your mental health. You guys have both been really amazing and informative today, and I wanted to thank you both so much for coming on the show.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much for having us as well. You have been so amazing.